Hi, I'm Duncan. I'm a musician, multi-instrumentalist, recording enthusiast, and the owner of a small burgeoning home studio. This one right here. Um, I'm never quite sure how to open these videos, whether, you know, most of you are people who are just tuning in and don't know anything about me, or people that have been tuning in and watching my videos for a little while. So I guess I'll just try and split the difference. But yeah, for those of you that have been watching lately, sorry I've been away for a little while. It's been a few weeks since my last video. The last one that I did was definitely labor of love, very intensive, and probably one of the more closely scripted things that I've put out in a while. And yeah, after it, I was kind of frankly exhausted and needed a little bit of a break. And then also, just a lot has been going on just in my life last few weeks. Been really busy, and not the least of things. I just had my birthday, so I was traveling around and spending some time with friends and family and stuff like that. So yeah, I've just had other things to do, but doesn't mean that I haven't been working on stuff and uh, making progress in some of my missions here with the equipment that I have and what I want to do with it. And yeah, I think that if you have been watching some of these videos, you know that the project that I've been spending a lot of time with lately has been this twin VOX V125 project. This is an amplifier that I first encountered kind of by chance late last year. Ended up buying the one that I came across in a shop that I go to a lot, and then ended up getting a clone version of it, slightly different version. I don't want to go into all of the details of that. Again, you can watch my last video if you want to get into a little bit of that distinction. But I'll leave it to say that since then, it's been kind of my mission to try to provide some documentation of the differences between these two amps. There's not been a lot written about them online that I can find. In the other screen, I've got one of the web pages that I've been to regularly. It's quite well maintained. They actually, since the last video that I put up, they finally got around to creating a page for the V125 Climax, which is the one that you can actually see over my shoulder with the name badge on it. Yeah, kind of see that right there. Yeah, but I'd been awaiting that to show up, and it finally did show up, and that's one of them, like, as far as I've been able to tell, one of the best maintained and probably most frequently visited resources on the history of Vox amps. And even as I finally got to read the article and the overview that they included here with the Climax, I was a little bit surprised that it kind of just corroborated some of the other things that I had seen printed in other places online. And excuse me. And I think that some of the information in it is still not completely accurate based upon what I've learned over the last few months and the information that I've been able to get with the help of my my tech down at the shop that I mentioned, British Audio, down in Nashville. And so it motivated me to dig back into this project and try to maybe help set the record straight about the distinctions between these variants of the V125. The lead, which is the initial version, the head-only version, and then the Climax, which is the combo version that was made a year later. They were, as far as I'm aware, they were never made concurrently. One replaced the other one. And despite a lot of apparent similarities, they're actually quite different amplifiers. And the project that I've been wanting to do is kind of based upon the idea of trying to use these sort of twin variants of this basic platform, in concert with each other, so that I can kind of, I don't know. It seems like an interesting idea. That I don't want to keep going into the weeds with that kind of stuff, but I think that kind of explains like the gist of this. And so the way I've got this set up here is that to like really make as even of a comparison of the two as possible, I'm, instead of using the built-in speakers inside of the cabinets of these two amplifiers that you can't quite see, well, yeah, you can see in the wide shot, the yeah, the two of them side by side there. As you can see, those are both combo amps. They have speaker enclosures, within, but I am not using those built-in speakers. Instead, I'm running the signal from each of the amplifiers to the vertical 2x12 Marshall cabinet that's in the corner, just beneath of the bass guitar that's hanging on the wall. That cabinet has a cool special feature that, again, British Audio introduced me or made me aware of, could be done to a cabinet like that, and I had them do for me. Is that basically it? Again, a lot of you are probably guitar players or whatever, and so this might sound like over-explaining, but for just like those of you who are just kind of like, curious about this kind of thing, or just checking in just because you know me or whatever, normally that's going to be just one input. You plug the guitar cable in, and it's going to be that is going to access both of the speakers that are inside the cabinet. And this cabinet can actually be tapped so that you can send signal directly to each of the individual speakers separately if you want to. So that's what I'm doing, is to create as much of a one-to-one parity in how I present each of the amps. I'm running them into that cabinet over there and using an identical speaker for each, because these two different amplifiers over here have very different types of speakers in them. The Climax, it has the original Fane 12-inch speakers in it, which are really cool. Their own thing. I think like maybe people describe them as like a little bit more like hi-fi instead of like necessarily guitar voiced. And then the speakers inside of the other cabinet, which is my V125 combo. It's like a customized thing. I'm sorry, V125 lead combo. It began life as a head and has been transplanted in and converted into a combo unit. That one has Celestion Cream 90-watt Alnicos in it. I replaced the speakers in that. So both of them are great, but in my interest, like for the sake of comparison, what I'm wanting to do is to present them basically with as similar staging as possible. So that's why I've got them running into that cabinet, so that it's, each one of them is running through the exact same type of speaker. And I should add that that's a little bit of a interesting aspect of the experiment too, that I think is kind of noteworthy, is that Marshall cabinet, it's called a SV212, I believe. When it came from the factory, it had these Celestion V-type speakers, which are not great, but I upgraded those with a type of speaker that's made just around the corner from me in Kentucky. It's a company called Warehouse, and they are 100-watt rated individually. British Invasion, Alnico, if I didn't say 100-watt, 100-watt speakers, which is really highly rated. And that's still a little bit of a gamble, because each of the V125s that I'm using, those are rated for a fucking 125 watts, which is just insane. That's a lot. That equals super, super loud. I virtually have no occasion to ever really need to tap into all of that power whatsoever. But it's kind of hard to come up with a scenario where you can take that risk reasonably to be able to pare that amplifier down into a single speaker source, because that's kind of like a pretty high power rating. That's kind of what I'm driving at. And so this has been sort of a process to be able to do this staging for this experiment. So it's still going to take me several months before I'm going to be able to really perform the full exhaustive presentation as I want to do it with these two amplifiers. But I just want to keep practicing explaining this, that that's like a fundamental aspect of trying to be kind of like, semi-scientific about this and kind of the approach and the extra work and problem solving that I had to do to be able to make this possible. So so basically that's what I've got here, is that I'm using each of these two Voxes, and I'm bypassing the internal speakers. I'm running the signal of each out to the vertical Marshall cabinet, tapping each amplifier into one of each of the two speakers in there, and then you can see the two microphones that I've got on the cabinet, one per speaker, and those are identical microphones. Those are Sennheiser MD421 2s, which are really good guitar cabinet mics, especially for like high sound pressure levels, which these are fucking loud, so it helps. So that's like just an explanation of the platform. But what I've been working on with these since the last time that I got on here and like talked in any depth was figuring out a way to really dial in the tone for the V125 lead, which is like the drive amp, the one that has the strengths in terms of really being able to be overdriven and achieve a really beautiful, tube saturation, which is my passion these days as a guitar player, is trying to find that tone. And a pretty commonly described approach, or like a target for setting a tube amplifier response, is I've heard it described over and over again as setting the amplifier on the edge of breakup, which is sort of the sweet spot where you can, depending upon the intensity of your articulation, you can either go from a relatively clean, unbroken kind of sound to the harder you play, the more distortion response you get out of it. But it's extremely dynamic and responsive, as opposed to my experience with like distortion pedals a lot of the time, is it's just kind of like draping one timbre over what you're playing. It doesn't really change based upon how you play into it. It's just kind of like, it's a dressing basically, as opposed to like a aspect of the instrument's response. And so I was having some challenges finding where that spot, the edge of breakup was. And this is where I sort of digress into one of the cool custom features of my V125 V125 lead. The person who did all these mods on it to take it and turn it into a combo amp, they added a half power feature, which is something that I've learned about on a number of tube amps, where it's kind of like, you might have it on your car where it's like, you can go into like a sport mode, econo mode, or regular mode for fuel economy, and how the engine engages. And that's kind of an idea that some of these amps have, where to try to avoid having to get as loud as you might have to get to achieve that kind of tube saturation of the amplifier. It will bypass half of the power tubes, so that you can actually achieve a similar effect, but at a lower volume level. But the concession with those is often that the dynamic response is a little bit compromised, and the term that gets thrown around a whole lot is that kind of the response becomes a little bit flubby. So my Marshall 20 watt over here, it's got a function that's built into it from the factory. It's got a low power mode, which is runs at 5 watts, and then the full power mode is at 20 watts. And kind of what I find is that there's a little bit less of a ability, a little bit less of a range when you have it in that low power mode to be able to back off and still have a nice clean sound. It kind of just sounds a little bit muddier, for lack of a better way of putting it. You lose a little bit of the sweet, clear tone of the instrument when you do that. And that's kind of what I was discovering with the low power mode. So if I'm going to be playing some just riff rock stuff and I don't have any anticipation of really trying to back off and get that kind of delicate clean sound, I can get away with using that. But I find that I don't necessarily enjoy using the half power mode on it. And when I made a switch the last few days and started running the amp at the full power, but of course with major hearing protection in, as you'll see when I start playing, I always wear with hearing protection because it's fucking loud in here with these things. And I like my hearing. I want to keep being able to use it. The volume is just an occupational hazard, but a necessity to be able to make the sounds that I want to. So anyway, all of this is to say that I have recalibrated the settings on the amp based upon running it at the full power mode, and I'm much more engaged with playing the amp now. So that's the big update in terms of the equipment stuff. Again, I don't know whether the folks that are tuning into this are more tuning into hear gear talk. Overall, my purpose for this is to try to provide some stuff for posterity just about some cool gear that I think is a little bit underreported on, and I'm in a position to help contribute some information on my experience with them. And so what else? Gosh, I don't think I got that much else that I want to say about the whole setup here, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just mess around and just play with this a little bit. I have no idea what to expect, but I'm just going to kind of try to have a little bit of fun with these two amps. And so thanks as always for tuning in. I hope to be doing these videos on a more regular basis, but it's always a little bit hard to tell. A lot of things are kind of just up in the air these days and taking things one day at a time. So anyway, with that, I'm going to switch gears here and do a little bit of playing. So happy Saturday. Hope you're doing well. And talk to you soon.